You can love each other for 3 years, go through all kinds of things together, and then one sentence about money makes everything explode. One person asks gently, "Why did we spend so much this month?" The other person hears it as an interrogation. Then they switch into defense mode. Then the voice gets louder. Then it ends in silence. And both people walk away thinking the same wrong thing, that we fight because of money. Number. Most money fights are really fights about respect, about feeling safe, and about who is carrying the responsibility. Money is just the trigger. What comes flying out is emotion. If you want to talk about money without fighting, you need two things. First, the right attitude. Second, a method that is clear enough that both people can see it as fair, even if your personalities are totally different. The right attitude is to stop judging and start getting curious. You do not walk into the conversation to win. You walk in to understand and then build a shared plan together. When you judge, the other person will hide. When you get curious, the other person will open up. A clear method starts with a truth that very few couples want to face. Each person carries an invisible script about money. It comes from the home you grew up in, from phrases you heard over and over, like, "We do not talk about money in this house," or "Money changes people," or "Credit cards are a trap," or "Renting is just throwing money out the window." You do not realize you believe those things, but you act like they are laws of nature. And your partner does too. So when you say saving, you might be talking about freedom, but your partner hears control. When your partner says spending, they might be talking about enjoying life, but you hear irresponsibility. You are using the same words, but the meanings are completely different. Here is the first principle. Do not start with numbers. Start with meaning. What do you want money to serve in your life together? If you cannot agree on that, every argument about bills, shopping, and eating out will repeat forever. So what does that look like in real life? You are going to do a money date. It sounds dry, but it is a pressure release valve. A lot of couples only talk about money when there is a problem. By then, emotions are already maxed out. You cannot solve anything when both of you are in survival mode. A money date does not happen in a supermarket parking lot. It does not happen when you are hungry. It does not happen right after a medical bill shows up and scares you. You pick a neutral time, a weekend night, after dinner, with your phones far away. And you bring it up ahead of time instead of springing it on your partner. You can open like this. Lately, I have been thinking a lot about money and our future. I want us to be on the same page. Can we set aside one night to talk? That is it. No accusations attached. Then you start with a broad question first. How do you see money? Some people like to spend more on rent so they can live somewhere comfortable. Some people prefer a simpler place so they can save more. I tend to lose control when we eat out. What about you? See what you did there? You gave examples and you admitted one weakness. That kind of confession is the key. It helps the other person lower their guard. Next, you ask about dreams. If you had a magic wand, what would you want our money to do? For me, I want an emergency fund big enough that I am not terrified if I lose my job. I also want to start putting more into my retirement account through work, but honestly, I still have not finished the paperwork. When you are willing to say you are not perfect, the other person feels safer telling the truth. Only after that do you move to the most important question for couples in the United States. How do we handle shared money in a way that feels both fair and comfortable? How do we split expenses? Do we have a shared goal, like paying down student loans, saving for a down payment on a home, or simply taking a trip at the end of the year? The goal of the first money date is not to solve everything. The goal is to normalize talking about money. You want to end it feeling like you are on the same team. Now you level up to a bigger money date. This is the one where you look straight at the entire picture. You do not need to make it dramatic. You just need to prepare. Each person brings a list of checking and savings accounts, how much is in them, debts and interest rates, total take-home income after federal and state taxes, fixed monthly expenses, and short-term and long-term goals. If you live in a high-cost state, rent alone, car costs, and health insurance can already feel like a math problem. When you see the full picture, you stop guessing about each other. In that meeting, you start with goals first. What kind of lifestyle do you want? Do you want to visit family in another state every year? Do you want to buy a home or keep renting for a few more years? Does anyone need to send money to support parents? Those questions sound simple, but they reveal core values. Then you move to spending. This is the easiest part to blow up because everyone is afraid of being judged. So you do something that feels backward. You put your side on the table first. You ask your partner, where do you think I could do better? When you ask for feedback about yourself first, the other person feels less like they are on trial. Let me tell you a very real situation. Oliver and Amelia moved in together in Texas. Oliver is an engineer with a steady paycheck. Amelia is a freelancer on contract work, so her income runs high some months and low other months. In the first month, Oliver looked at the bank statement and saw that eating out had spiked. Oliver blurted out, "Do you really need to order food that much?" Amelia shot back, "You think I do not know how to handle life?" And they ended up fighting over one takeout bag. But what they were really fighting about was Amelia feeling looked down on. They decided to do a real money date. Oliver started with a confession. "I get tense because I grew up in a house that was always afraid of not having enough money. When I see numbers, I panic." Amelia responded, "I grew up in a house where nobody talked about money. I always avoid it. I am afraid of being controlled, so I react hard." Just that one exchange with zero numbers changed the entire mood. Then they set goals. Oliver wanted an emergency fund that could cover 6 months of living expenses. Amelia wanted to pay off her student loans faster and still keep some money to visit family in Florida. They agreed on one principle. Every expense has to serve at least one goal, either safety, the future, or intentional joy. If these opening lines make it easier for you to talk, subscribe to Wealth Wisdom Notes. You do not need 100 little hacks. You need a few good principles and you need to do them consistently. And that channel does exactly that. And from here, everything gets tested in 3 places: who earns more, who spends more, and how to turn differences into a plan that both people choose to follow willingly. First is the question of who earns more. When one person earns more, that person, often without realizing it, feels entitled to decide. When one person earns less, that person, often without realizing it, feels like they have to ask permission. As long as those two feelings exist, any money conversation can tilt the wrong way. The way out is to change the question. Do not ask who pays what percentage. Ask, what kind of fairness do we want? Some couples define fairness as splitting based on income. Some define it as splitting based on who can handle more pressure. Some define it as splitting based on time and effort. There is no universal answer. There is only the answer that fits the two of you. Charlotte and Theodore got stuck on this exact point. Charlotte worked as a product manager with steady, reliable income. Theodore worked in a creative field. Some months he had a ton of contracts. Some months were completely quiet. Every time the credit card bill came due, Charlotte got anxious. Theodore felt like he was being watched and judged. They were not fighting about money. They were fighting because Charlotte was afraid of risk and Theodore was afraid of being seen as a burden. They changed everything with an agreement that sounds simple but works incredibly well. They split their money into 3 zones. A shared zone for things they both use, like rent, utilities, groceries, insurance, gas, and other fixed bills. A shared goals zone, like an emergency fund, paying down debt, a down payment for a home, or planned travel. And a personal freedom zone. Each person gets a small amount to spend however they want with zero explanation, as long as they do not touch the shared zone or the shared goals zone. Just hearing that probably makes you breathe easier, right? Because most fights start with, "What did you buy that cost so much?" Or, "Why would you spend money on something that ridiculous?" When you have a freedom zone, neither person has to ask permission for small stuff. And when the small stuff stops exploding, you finally have the calm to talk about the big stuff. Here's what it looks like in practice. You agree on a number for the personal freedom zone. For example, $150 to $300 per person per month, depending on your budget. This is not secret money. This is money you both agreed on in advance. If you want to buy shoes, grab coffee with a friend, or buy a gift for your mom, you use that amount. Your partner does not question it, and you do not question theirs. Next, you set a threshold for bigger purchases. For example, anything over $200 or $300 means you tell each other ahead of time. Not asking permission, just giving a heads up. That difference matters a lot. Asking permission turns your partner into your parent. Giving a heads up makes you teammates. You only need one sentence. "Hey, this week I am planning to buy a work chair for about $250. I just wanted to tell you so you are not surprised when you see it on the statement." That is it. And what happens next depends on your partner's reaction. If your partner blows up, the problem is emotion, not the chair. Now we get to the second pain point. Who spends more? Some people spend more because, without realizing it, they are escaping stress. Some people spend more because they show love through gifts. Some people spend more because they do not realize how much they are spending, because everything on your phone is one tap away. You do not fix spending habits by scolding. You fix them by making them visible and connecting them to a goal. You do one very simple thing. Every week, the two of you have a 15-minute conversation, not longer than that. You pull up your transaction history, glance through it, and ask each other 3 questions. This week, what did we spend money on that genuinely made us happy? This week, what did we spend money on that we kind of regret? Next week, where do we want to do a little better? Do not underestimate those 3 questions. It is short enough that it does not turn into a meeting. It is consistent enough that you do not wait until everything is on fire. It turns money into a normal topic, like planning your weekend. If one person has a regular income, like contract freelance work, you need one more agreement that is basically non-negotiable. You have to set aside part of that income for taxes, because if you get paid and spend it all, then federal and state taxes hit like a shockwave. You do not need an exact number in this video because it depends on your state, the time of year, and your situation. But the principle is this. Always set it aside before you spend. It might be about 1/3. It might be about 1/4. It depends. What matters is that you set it aside the day the money comes in, like a category you do not touch. Oliver and Amelia did exactly that. Amelia used a separate savings account only for tax money. Oliver did not touch it, and Amelia did not touch it either. And every time Amelia got paid for a contract, the first thing she did was move the tax portion into that account. The result was that they stopped having those fights like, why do we suddenly have to pay a huge chunk this month? Now we get to the third pain point, debt and credit cards. This is where a lot of couples feel both ashamed and scared. One person is afraid of being judged. The other person is afraid of being dragged down. So the opening has to be extremely careful. You do not open with, how much do you owe? You open with, I want us to be safe. I want us to understand the situation so we can build a plan together, not so I can judge you. Then you share your fear first. Sometimes I overspend too. I have avoided looking at statements before because I felt embarrassed. But I want us to grow up in this area. When you talk about credit card debt, you focus on immediate actions. Do not debate the past. Do not dig into who did what. You look at 4 things: the current balance, the minimum monthly payment, the annual percentage rate that applies, and how many months it would take if you only pay the minimum. Just seeing the number of months is enough to wake a lot of people up. Then you decide how to attack it. Some couples prioritize the highest interest rate first. Some couples prioritize the smallest balance first to build momentum. There is no perfect right or wrong. What matters is that you agree on one method and do it consistently. Do not forget one more thing that makes couples in the United States tense: credit scores. A credit score is not just a number. It affects renting an apartment, buying a car, getting a mortgage, and sometimes even insurance costs. If you are planning to build a life together long-term, you should agree on one rule. Do not wreck your credit score because of one impulsive decision. You do not need to talk like a professor, just talk like a practical person. We want the future to feel easier to breathe in, so we keep our credit scores solid. That is all. Now we get to the most important part: how to talk so it does not escalate. You need a script for the moment tension starts rising. When you feel yourself about to nag, stop and switch to a neutral sentence. I am feeling worried, not angry. I am worried because I want us to be safe. Can we talk for a minute? That one shift changes everything. It moves the conversation from attack to sharing. When your partner reacts defensively, do not lecture, reflect. You are hearing me, and it feels like I am trying to control you, right? I do not want that. I want us to build a plan together so we both feel comfortable. And when both of you start getting heated, use the pause rule. Say it clearly. Let's take a 15-minute break to cool down, then come back to the same topic. Pausing is not running away. Pausing is protecting the relationship from words you cannot take back. You also need an ending ritual, so money does not cling to love. End a money conversation with one sentence of acknowledgement. Thank you for being honest with me. I know this is not easy. I feel more like we are a team. Just one sentence, but it makes your partner more willing to work with you next time. If you are still listening and you want skills like this to become a habit, subscribe to Wealth Wisdom Notes. Here we talk about money in a way that makes you calmer, clearer, and makes life feel easier. Before we wrap up, I want you to remember one image. Money is like the steering wheel of a car. It is not love. But if the steering wheel is off, the car swerves. You do not need to be perfect. You just need to be honest, consistent, and kind to each other. Tonight, you only need to do one thing. Pick a time and say one opening line. I want us to be on the same page about money. Can we set a gentle time to talk? After you say it, stop. Be quiet. Wait. And listen. If you can do that, you will notice something interesting. It is not just that money gets less tense, the relationship gets deeper too. Because you learned how to talk about hard things while still keeping respect. Thank you for watching all the way to the end. If you want to build a stable life in the United States, one step at a time, do not forget to subscribe to Wealth Wisdom Notes and turn on notifications so you do not miss new videos.